Like a dollar on elastic in this free world. I wouldn't tell you if I didn't care.
New tests have found dangerous levels of toxins in crab meat. Doctors say pesticides are likely to be in most people's tap water.
The most serious recent outbreak of sickness attributed to parasitic infection of water supplies.
I'm one of a growing number of people who are losing faith in the water supply. Every time I watch the TV or open a newspaper, there seems to be another article about pesticides getting into drinking water or about the wetlands drying up and rivers drying up generally in this country. I got very worried a couple of years ago when I started finding things floating about in my coffee every day, so I got a water filter put into my kitchen. There you go. Thank you. The other thing is that we don't seem to ever be able to use our hose pipes in the southeast, apart from 4 months in the winter when we don't have any need for them whatsoever. So whether it's down to the ozone layer or whether it's down to any other reason, there doesn't seem to be enough water. I wanted to find a way to recycle our wastewater that we have coming through this house, because it seems that every time you flush a toilet or empty your bath, the results end up in a local river or on somebody's beach. Basically, I wanted to be able to reuse my bath water so it would become an amenity as opposed to a problem. I love gardening and get really fed up with the hosepipe bans. I wanted a pond anyway, and when I heard a reed bed system could clean and recycle our bath water, it was the obvious solution to irrigating the garden. I kept a diary of the pond's progress and this programme on my own video camera. Well, here we are on the 24th of October and construction of the pond is underway. Right here in front of me you can see a cement base which they're going to put a vertical reed bed on. Further back there you can see a horizontal base which is going to have a horizontal reed bed on. And the bridge is already being built over the hole they've excavated.
This is a big plastic orange juice tank that's going to take the residue overflow from the pond and irrigate the garden. How about that for 50 quid?
Okay, so I'm lucky. I'm installing the reed bed, I've got a water filter and I still buy gallons of bottled water. But bottled water is a luxury item to most people. Surely our tap water should be perfectly good and in plentiful supply. I followed my main supply back to where it comes from, Kempton Water Treatment Works in West London.
Can you tell me first of all, where does all the water come from?
It comes out of the River Thames between Datchet and Staines into about 6 of the large storage reservoirs, and then it comes from the reservoir into the works and into the primary filters here. The water flows quite fast and it removes particles primarily, and then it goes on to the much slower sand filters.
So what sort of things doesn't that remove? Because you have to put chlorine in after that, don't you?
Yes, we remove most of the microorganisms here. The chlorine is just a final extra fail-safe precaution for any of them that might get through.
I know you test for pesticides in the water, and I wondered if can they be cleaned up at any part of the treatment?
No, the pesticides are one of the few intractable substances that we can't currently remove, and so we're looking at that at the moment, a major investment and research programme, how that can be removed.
The 1 o'clock news from the BBC with Philip Hayton.
The British Medical Association says traces of pesticides are to be found in most of the country's tap water. The association says not enough is known about the medical effects of prolonged exposure to pesticides. It's urging the government to ensure far greater caution in their use.
I got in touch with Thames Water to find out what sort of tests that they do and to find out what sort of things might be in the water supply. And in the letter they sent back, they did actually say that out of just over a quarter of the tests that they took, the pesticide level was beyond the relevant standard. That sounds sort of worrying to someone who doesn't really know what that means. Can you explain it for me?
Well, only to say that there are low amounts of certain toxic pesticides and chemicals in our drinking water in various parts of this country, and certainly in Thames water in recent times there have been some reports of this. Whether or not the levels that you've been exposed to have in fact been toxic, I think is extremely doubtful. But of course it is undesirable.
How did the pesticides actually get into the water supply in the first place?
Well, it gets sprayed onto land or onto railway cuttings and railway sidings and things like that. And as you know, the rain gets into the earth and then it gets into the water table, and the water table gets into the rivers or into wells, and from that we get substances which therefore get into our water supplies. I mean, ideally, in any ideal world, we should have no foreign substance in water supplies whatever.
Part of the problem that you've got to deal with is the amount of pesticides. I mean, when I wrote to Thames Water for a rundown of what comes out of my tap, apart from H2O, it was something like just over 25% of the tests they'd done for pesticides. They were over the limit they should have been.
That's right. Although they're very small amounts, 1 part in 10,000 million is the standard. That's the standard that the government has set, and that's what we have to invest to remove. It's really down to you, the customers, if you think that's right. But
well, obviously we want it removed, but I'm just
Yeah.
wondering if the people who are actually putting it onto the land should have something to do towards paying for it, or should it always be sort of Joe Public?
Yeah. Well, ideally it should be cured at source and managed that way, yes.
So why not make the polluters pay? Better still, encourage organic farming so that neither the water supply nor our food ends up contaminated.
Maybe it's imaginary, I'd like to know what's the world coming to and where will it go? We wash all the food and we peel off the skin, but what is the point if it's poisoned within? Now I don't know why we say okay. Maybe it's imaginary, hope it's not too late. Maybe those imaginary rivers run dry, but if it's true then I'd like to know why. I don't know much, but I'd like to know why.
It's not only pesticides that are the problem. Leaks and contaminations are regular news items these days.
The South West Water Authority has been found guilty of causing a public nuisance after water around Camelford in North Cornwall was contaminated with aluminium in July 1988. Judge Graham Neville at Exeter Crown Court fined them £10,000 and ordered them to pay £25,000 in costs.
The prosecution of the South West Water Authority had rested on the short-term effects on the 20,000 people who live around the town of Camelford. Many suffered immediately from mouth ulcers, diarrhea and vomiting. But since then, there have been growing complaints of long-term effects.
A government inquiry into infectious parasites in drinking water is expected to call for millions of pounds to be spent by the new water companies. The inquiry will report on a potentially lethal organism in water called Cryptosporidium. It's thought to have caused 9,000 cases of stomach upset in Britain last year.
Cryptosporidium, although harmless to most of us, can prove fatal to the very young, very old and people with immune deficiencies, such as those caused by the HIV virus. And so the list goes on and on. Last year, poisonous algae blooms began growing on reservoirs all over the country. In addition to all this, the water levels are getting lower because our rivers are beginning to dry up.
Maybe those imaginary rivers run dry, but if it's true then I'd like to know why.
Well, Jenny, we're both absolutely freezing now. I know that my part of the country, the hosepipe ban only finished about 2 weeks ago. It just seems something that you associate really with like hot countries and very dry weather. How come we don't have enough water, and should we be building more reservoirs?
Well, it's been exceptionally drought conditions for the last 2 to 3 years, which is why we've had to use the hosepipe bans in the short term. But yes, we are planning for new reservoirs and resources because that's what's required.
So you're going to be spending money on a lot of new stuff, new equipment and new plants. Is that going to come out of my own pocket at the end of the day as a consumer?
Yes, it will do. We are spending a lot of money now, and on water treatment, £450 million in this decade, and it will come out of the customer's pocket, 5% above inflation each year.
Ironic, isn't it? Even with our infamous climate, water is a precious commodity.
Are you using the autofocus?
Yep.
Is that good, Bobby? Hello.
We all waste hundreds of gallons of water every week simply because we've never thought of it as a valuable resource. We always thought we had plenty to go round, but the reality is that we don't, and now we're going to have to pay the price. That's why I decided to save our bathwater and use it on the garden. It goes the normal way down the plug and into the drain pipe, but instead of letting it end up in the sewers, we've channeled it under the lawn to the pond and the new reed bed system. We've got pipes now coming out the house, going under the lawn,
Yep.
up towards the pond.
And we've just planted the reeds a few days ago, so give them another couple of weeks and you'll be able to start feeding your wastewater over them. It takes a few weeks for the root systems to establish themselves.
So what sort of reeds are they?
These are Phragmites, one of the more commonly found reeds in the country, and their root activity and a certain degree of actual filtration as well produces, in my experience, the most effective form of cleansing for effluent. So certainly to a far higher standard than you would find, let's say, at your local sewage works.
Well, we've got about 5 baths a day coming out of our house. Are these going to be able to cope with all of that?
Yes, no problem at all, and rather interestingly, as you want to use the water to sprinkle and irrigate your garden so that you're immune to any hosepipe bans come the summertime, the amount of water that you produce from the 4 or 5 baths a day is just enough to put an inch of water on your garden every 10 days, which is the standard irrigation cycle for this country.
But what happens to the rest of my wastewater? Well, it goes along the sewers to Mogden Sewage Works, where it undergoes a conventional treatment process which hasn't changed for over 50 years.
Well, it's comes into the works through a number of sewers at different levels, and the first thing we do to it is to remove the rag, the bits of plastic that would otherwise interfere with the processes that carry on through the works. That material is then just macerated, chopped up small, and returned into the flow. Following that, we remove, 50% of the organic load by settlement in primary settlement tanks, which are these banks over here. Following that, it's mixed with activated sludge, which happens in these lanes here. What we're doing, in effect, is trying to speed up and intensify the process that happens naturally in a river. The bacteria use oxygen and oxidize the pollution load into carbon dioxide, which just comes off. It's a natural respiration. And from there, it passes into final settlement tanks, where the active sludge, which has been doing the treatment, is separated and recycled back into the works, and the effluent, purified, clean, flows over and goes into the river.
What happens to the rest to the liquids that have ended it?
Well, the liquid has had 97% of its pollution load or more removed, and that goes into the river. It goes into the river here off Ilpie Island. which is opposite Kew Garden.
So, the liquid effluent from my sewage, hopefully now without too many impurities, ends up back in the Thames, the same river that my drinking water comes from.
Don't go near the water. Don't you think it's sad? What's happened to the water? Our water's going bad. Oceans, rivers, lakes and streams have all been touched by man. Poison flowing out to sea now threatens life on land.
The problem is that the sewage effluent is not always pure enough, and in some places the effluent constitutes over half the flow of the river it feeds into. The National Rivers Authority now monitors the state of our rivers and attempts to prosecute the polluters.
The problem with the River Aire is that it's not a very large river compared with the big concentrations of population, particularly in Bradford and Leeds. Their wastewater has to be returned to the river. It gets treated in sewage treatment works, but we need very high standards of treatment before the quality of water we all desire in the river is met. Over the past decades, there's not been enough investment in sewage treatment because below Bradford, about 50% of the flow in the river is derived from the sewage treatment works, and when you get the effluent coming in from Leeds, downstream of here, up to 70% is from sewage treatment. The sewage works are overloaded with the effluent from industry and from the population, and with lack of public funds in past years, works haven't been improved to the standard to cater for that.
The amount of effluent coming out of Esholt sewage works almost doubles the size of the river. Now that means that the effluent that they're putting out into the River Aire must be of very high quality, otherwise it's bound to pollute it, and it isn't.
Don't go near the water. Ain't it sad? What's happened to the water? It's going bad. Don't go near the water. Don't go near the water. Toothpaste and soap will make our oceans a bubble bath. So that's a modern ecological aftermath. Beginning with me, beginning with you.
How do we ever get some sort of lumps that shouldn't be there in the rivers? Because we've seen them on sort of riverbanks of things. I mean, how do they actually get through the process?
There's a great deal of process works between what's coming in the sewer and what goes out into the river. But not every works treats fully. A lot of the sea outfalls are really just that, sea outfalls. The sewage may receive some screening, but at the moment is then passed straight into the sea. If it's disseminated widely, the natural processes that occur in the sea treat it and there is no problem. But where the sea outfall is not long enough or the flow isn't distributed, then obviously you can get things come back onto the beach.
Everybody happy?
Rolling.
Well, this is your patch, so to speak, Mark, and I know you bring kids down here on educational sort of nature walks. What sort of things do they come back with?
Oh, well, we've got quite an interesting stretch of the beach here. It might not look very nice to start with. There's actually a tremendous amount of life down there, and depending on the age of the kid, we take youngsters down here on shore walks and show them the life down there, through to sixth formers and teachers themselves doing actual scientific work down there. But yeah, they do find one or two interesting things. There's a little incident just a couple of weeks ago. One little girl came running up to me, look what I found, look what I found. I found this sea anemone. And I had to tell her that it was actually a partially decomposed turd that she had in hand, which wasn't very nice. But You can always guess one little sort of 9-year-old, 10-year-old come along waving a condom, asking what it is. I'm always convinced they really know, but...
They do find other stuff as well, though, don't they? Stuff that they're supposed to find.
Yes, but there's a tremendous amount of plastic debris there, as well as natural rubbish from the salt marshes, from seaweeds that have been washed in as well. Quite a mixture down there.
Don't go near the water. Don't go near the water. Toothpaste and soap will make our oceans a bubble bath. So that's a modern ecological aftermath. Beginning with me, beginning with you.
I used to visit various coastal resorts every year with my mum. We'd set off around some part of the country or Ireland or Wales or whatever, and I used to spend, I think, all of my time... Oh, that's nice, turd there.
It's not uncommon around here, I'm afraid.
I spend all my time doing handstands in the water and messing around in rock pools. So what are we actually coming up to here?
Well, this structure going down here, that's the Morecambe sewage outfall. All the sewage from Morecambe, all the residents, all the holidaymakers, comes straight out through that pipe into the bay, completely untreated.
Oof.
So if we walk on down, we can walk down to that climbing frame structure, and at the end there, with a bit of luck, we'll see the sewage coming out the end.
I was going to say with a bit more luck we wouldn't, but...
Well, hopefully one day we won't. But I'm afraid for the next few years we're stuck with this method of sewage disposal in Morecambe.
This pipe has served the whole of Morecambe for over 50 years. But during that time, Morecambe's population has increased to over 30,000, and that's not including the tourists.
Well, sewage has got many problems, causes a lot. There's the actual quality of the beach for the holidaymaker. You're walking along the beach, the last thing you want to see are all these condoms, tampons, partially decomposed turds. It really is rather revolting. Then, of course, you've got all the sewage bacteria and viruses that are loose in the seawater. So if you fancy going in for a swim, you fancy a go on a windsurfer, you're taking the risk that you're going to end up with a bad throat, food poisoning, something like that. And then probably the most scary thing is that they've recently discovered that the HIV virus can actually survive in sewage for several days. It's not very nice, is it? And they found that it can live for the longest if it's in, say, congealed blood or if it's in pus. And, of course, if you think what comes out the sewer, what comes out the sewage outfall, you're going to get sanitary towels, congealed blood on, you're going to get sticking plasters with congealed blood and pus on. And, of course, we've got a lot of little children running around on the beaches. There's broken glass, there's old tin cans, they cut their fingers, they go and pick up a sanitary towel. Well, it's not actually been proven that you can get HIV positive from doing that, but they've certainly proved that it can live on those particular items.
Well, what are they going to actually do about it? Because presumably it's going to take money to clear up this operation, and have they sort of said, yes, we're going to spend it, or what?
They'll have to, eventually, because the proposed DC directives are not going to allow this sort of thing to happen. You're not going to be allowed to put crude sewage out into the sea. It will have to be treated to some extent.
Now I don't know why we say okay. Maybe it's imaginary, hope it's not too late. And when in the summer we go to the sea, the things floating by aren't what we want to see, and I'd change it all. If I had one wish, I'd never go swimming with those nuclear fish. Maybe those imaginary rivers run dry, but if it's true, then I'd like to know why. I don't know much, but I'd like to know why.
It isn't only sewage that pollutes our rivers and seas. At the River Loon, a beauty spot once painted by Turner, we'd heard that there was radioactive contamination. So we went up to do our own test.
Yes, that was a great programme, Go with Noakes.
Yeah, and Shep.
Oh. So this looks like a reasonable spot, and we can try and get some mud from around here. Well, this looks like a good place to get a sample. You can see where the river has put all this fine sediment into this little area, and that's the sort of thing that we're looking for, because...
Can I have a go?
Yeah, sure, no problem. What you do is just lower the thing onto the bottom. Okay, let's just drop it here. So it's nice fine mud. Lift up the weight. Let's drop it onto the bottom. Right, and drop the weight. And that releases the spring clips, and as you pull the grab up, hopefully we should have a sample.
So, what's actually the effect of pesticides and radioactivity, apart from obviously with fish and things that actually live in the river and birds or whatever? Are people going to be affected by it at all?
Well, obviously it affects the birds and the fish first and foremost. But I think with respect to the radioactivity, well, one of the most insidious things about that, of course, is that you can't taste it, you can't smell it, you can't see it, and yet it's there. And one of the great controversies at the moment that's raging is precisely what sort of effects it does have on humans. There have been leukemic clusters identified around a number of nuclear installations. And of course it's very difficult to prove that harm is actually being caused.
And I'd change it all if I had one wish. I'd never go swimming with those nuclear fish.
We found low-level radioactivity. Although we can't be sure where it came from, Sellafield is not a million miles away. A lot of industries routinely pollute our rivers with chemical effluents and are licensed to do so within limits. At Fleetwood, ICI, the recent #1 on Greenpeace's hit list of polluting companies, has quite legally released poisonous mercury into the River Wyre. But here and at Teesside, it has been prosecuted and fined on 5 separate occasions for various contaminations. Now it's begun to clean up its act, and in the forefront of its drive is a new system at Teesside. Opened last autumn by Chris Patton, then Environment Secretary, this new system will purify 99% of ICI's effluent at this plant. So what's their solution? Simply the humble reed bed, just like mine, but bigger. Well, we've been looking at various different sources of pollutants that are going into the river and the sea, and a lot of it is sewage. And one place I visited was Fleetwood, where, you know, ICI have got another plant, and one of the problems there is that there seems to be mercury coming out from that into the River Wyre, which is killing a lot of seabirds and stuff. Would the reeds be able to cope with, say, mercury?
Yes, they can. They can cope with heavy metals as well as materials such as this. Again, it depends on having the right sort of system to deal with that kind of effluent. But yes, it's quite possible to treat things like mercury or cadmium, other heavy metals such as that, with a system such as this.
So, if this goes according to plan and you're happy and everything, are you going to be, you know, building more of these for various other plants?
What we're actually hoping in this particular area is that these beds themselves will be capable of dealing with practically all of the effluent that actually arises from the Billingham area.
What sort of effluent will they get rid of? I mean, is it completely across the board, or is it just...
Yeah, the main requirement of the effluent is that it has to be biodegradable. In other words, bugs will eat it. Once you've got that, then with the right design of system, it should take up most types of effluent.
When you were saying that it can cope with anything that's biodegradable, I mean, presumably that would include sewage.
Indeed, it would.
And I was just thinking, maybe, I mean, if they could build more systems like this to cope with sewage, as long as industrial effluent was kept away from the sewage in the first place, that could work for the whole system, couldn't it?
That's right, it could. I mean, it already has found several uses in treatment of sewage, and I think that it's a growing problem. It's not only industrial effluent, is the sewage, and the mopping up of that is something that you know, we all should be concerned about, and this kind of system can deal very effectively with sewage.
So, this simple plantation of reeds will not only cope with heavy metals from industrial effluent, but will also treat sewage. And it doesn't pollute the environment. Why hasn't it been used before? In fact, it has, but you have to go to Egypt to find the biggest and most ambitious way of using it. Ismailia is a major city and bustling port at the southern end of the Suez Canal, with a population of 100,000. Though it has some freshwater canals, it isn't in the fertile Nile Delta, so it needs to take care of its water. Their conventional sewage system is old and broken down. So, with some help from Portsmouth Polytechnic, the Suez Canal University took over part of the treatment works and installed a reed bed.
We think this research-style reed bed will handle enough for 1,000 people from a community, a small village community.
So, how much space do you actually need per person?
It works out at around 1.5 square meters per person of gravel bed system. It varies between 1.5 and 2. It's a possibility that by adapting the design of the system and making the gravel deeper and creating different types of flows rather than a horizontal flow using a vertical flow, that we could actually reduce the area that we need to treat the sewage. We think that it's achieving in Egypt irrigation standards. The improvements are in a whole variety of chemical and physical factors, but we are trying where we can to get over the message that with this sort of system we can either improve the quality of water to a high degree with a climate such as Egypt's, or we can polish effluents and give a better standard of treatment for situations in which the sewage treatment works may not be conforming to what is required of them for discharge into the local waterways.
It's a message with significance everywhere, but it's in Egypt where its potential is being recognised most enthusiastically. In the desert it can be used to provide irrigation for crops, but even in the Nile Delta they are seizing on its advantages. Kafel Sheikh Atiya is a village in the fertile delta. Every inch of land is farmed and there's no spare acreage. Even so, they have still asked the university to build them a reed bed.
So what was the main reason for choosing Sheikh Atiya for the site of the new reed bed system at it?
Actually, the main reason is a medical reason, because the people here complain most of the time from diseases caused by pathogenic bacteria, and we suspected about bacteria comes from sewage, mixed the water supplies, because they are mainly dependent upon underground water for drinking and other purposes. The underground water level is quite high here in this village, yes, and mixing is very easy between the sewage water and the underground water.
Right. So the villagers themselves have actually taken the initiative here, haven't they? They've decided they want to do something about it, and am I right in thinking they've actually said they'll pay for a sewage collection system so that it can be piped to the side of the new reed bed?
That's right, yes.
So the new reed bed is going to be based here, isn't it?
Yes, in this area, and the people gave us, actually, the land free. And that means they are in real trouble, and they are keen to solve their problem.
The reed bed system itself, of course, is a low-maintenance system, isn't it? Ideal for villages like this.
Yeah, if we compare the reed bed system with other conventional systems, very cheap, very safe.
So you're, to some extent, a pioneering for the reed bed system and trying to make it work.
That's right, and in addition in Egypt, I think we are in need for the water as well. The problem is not only treating the water, but to recycle this water, reclaiming our desert and for crop production. But I think it's just a start, and we have the chance to apply this system in many other villages if we succeeded, or if we succeed to build a successful model here in this village.
That's right. In the UK, of course, we don't have the benefit of the climate, and certainly it would be an advantage for UK water authorities to use reed bed systems at the end of sewage treatment works to try and improve the quality of the effluent that actually goes into the rivers and streams.
Well, the advantages of reed beds for the Third World are certainly clear, and the lessons are just as important for us back in Britain. Meanwhile, my own reed bed is working. The reeds are growing, they survive the winter months without a problem, and our bathwater is being dripped through the pipes onto the beds. The fish and frogs are thriving, and we're gradually adding more plants. We can even grow vegetables in the gravel around the pond. We also installed this great stone sculpture called the flow form. This aerates and puts rhythm into the water and actually accelerates plant growth, which in turn helps speed up the cleansing process. It's become a major scenic feature of the garden. If reed beds are so versatile, why aren't they being used more widely? Lack of space was the obvious response from a number of the authorities we spoke to, but there are ways to counteract that. Building the beds up vertically dramatically reduces the amount of space needed. What's the advantage with a vertical flow bed?
It's very much more effective, some 5 times more effective than the horizontal beds that you have around the edge of your pond. This means that you can make do with 5 times less area, and that reduces the cost considerably as well. This sort of system should be used more widely by the former water authorities in treating sewage, perhaps on a more localized community basis, so that the water can be returned straight to rivers rather than from centralized treatment works, which are normally at the bottom of rivers, often very close to where they exit to the sea.
So, of course, if they were cleaning it up with a system like this, they could put in fairly fresh water back into the rivers, so they wouldn't be polluting them anyway.
Absolutely. The pollution reduction achieved by this is some 99%. We understand that the effluent is clean enough to swim in. It doesn't just meet present EEC bathing standards, but the future very tough bathing standards that will come in a few years' time. We're told that the reason our water got into this situation was through lack of funds to sort the problems out. This method appears to be some 50% of the cost of those methods presently widely used.
And it doesn't take a lot of maintenance afterwards either. It doesn't take a lot of
very
work,
little maintenance, very little, and of course it's an amenity. It's something that doesn't have to be hidden away and keep the public away. I mean, you've got it here in your back garden. It could be done on a community basis, a series of water parks that people could enjoy.
So what are the advantages of a reed bed? Well, it's cheaper, it's easy to maintain, and it's an amenity in itself. It can cope with sewage and industrial effluent. And most important of all, it puts back purer water into the rivers, so it helps to top up the supply. Shouldn't the water companies be taking more notice?
Don't go near the water. Don't go near the water. Toothpaste and soap will make our oceans a bubble bath. So that's a modern ecological aftermath. Beginning with me, beginning with you. Don't go near the water to do it any wrong. To be cool with